You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shoe In Show. Thank you for joining us. Week after week, our numbers are rising, Matt, and I'll tell you why that is. I figured it out. It's not us.
All your mom.
It's not the great guests. It's that we take it to an 11. Most shows take it to 10. We are the show where a normal person would say a period at the end of the sentence will do, and we say, no, always exclamation. Always taking it up a little bit higher.
You say that, but I literally was checking out our ratings, Andy, and I never do this, but we only accept 5 stars, but somehow we have like a 4.6 in iTunes. So I was a little hurt by that. So we've got to take it to a 12 is what I think I'm saying.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll call up Tim Cook and see what's going on in Apple. And
all right, please do that.
No problem. Folks, this is the Shoe and Show. We're covering the footwear business and operations side. I know there's a lot of podcasts out there about fashion. We cover a little bit of that too. A lot of sneaker podcasts, but our podcast really is about interviewing the industry, hearing their perspective, and spreading those best practices out to make our industry stronger. Today is going to be a great episode. Our producer always says we got to keep these evergreen, but it is getting hot out. I don't know if somebody's listening to this later down the line and it's in the wintertime, but it is getting hot out currently as we're talking, and my feet are getting a little bit hot. And so I think the marketplace is heating up a little bit more for sandals than it has been as we get into spring and summertime. And it only seemed appropriate that we would go out to one of the leading, just absolutely killing it in the marketplace, Deckers brands. I mean, every single component of their company is doing fantastic.
Yep.
It speaks to the culture and leadership they have. But one segment in particular today is going to be a fascinating discussion for Teva, which I don't think we've had on the show before.
I don't think we have either, Andy. So it's our honor and privilege for this, I think, our 270-something show, almost 5 years into it, to have Anders Bergstrom, Vice President of Global GM of Teva Footwear, and Jess Bensley, who is the Senior PLM there, to talk about how awesome Teva is doing right now. And to walk through several of their key initiatives that I think people are going to want to learn more about. But before we get to that, Anders, let me ask you this from the outset. People got a lot of cash. People are outdoors a lot. There's a lot of just the movement of goods. Talk to us about the current state of Teva as it relates to kind of year 2 of the pandemic, hopefully the final year of this pandemic. But walk us through where you guys are right now and some of the market conditions that you're facing.
Well, you're the first person I've heard say year 2 of the pandemic. And Matt, I don't think that's going to help your iTunes rating.
Touche. I think you're right.
Hey, Matt and Andy, thanks so much for having us. What an honor. It feels like a lifetime ago that we were all in New York at the Sustainability Summit. It really does feel like a lifetime ago. I think we're experiencing the same kind of dynamics as everybody else. And right now our dynamic is like, wow, we have a lot of demand and let's try to get these goods in the country. Right. And I think all of your listeners are going to probably nod their head at that one. But what a unique problem to the one that we felt 1 year ago, which was literally the opposite. Wow, we have all these goods and what are we going to do with all of them now that the majority of our retail doors are closed? And for us, I mean, our DC was shut down for a little bit just to kind of figure out how to get through the beginning part of the operational shutdown that COVID led to. But in general, I would say that Teva and many, active and athletic outdoor brands have been the beneficiaries of a real human insight, which is that being active and being outdoor just makes you feel better, makes your life better. And we were the beneficiaries of a generation of people who learned that being outdoors and visiting national parks and being on the trail can make your life better. And all of our products that go along with that have just become a new kit of well-being. And this past year was I mean, as long as I live, I don't know that I'll go through something as dramatic as that. I mean, God, I shouldn't say that, but, but what I will say is, for Teva specifically, we were coming off two of the strongest years in the brand's history, if not the two strongest years of the brand's history, in 2018 and 2019. And one of the operating strategies that we had as a company, but in particular about Teva, was if you're strong going in, you'll be stronger coming out. And that COVID is serving as a great accelerator of culture, of trend, of business, right? If you think about not only the trend toward greater outdoor activity and adoption of brands that are, offering authentic product and utilitarian product, but also the digitization of commerce and the pressure on a global supply chain. All of these things were there in 2019 and just accelerated like crazy last year. And so I'm happy to say that, through an insane amount of work and stress and incredible grit and teamwork for Teva, we've had a great year. And I don't think a year ago, if the four of us had been talking, I would have said that a year from now, I will have said those words, because, we were just setting forth on this incredible journey last year. But, it's been a tremendous year to be part of the Deckers Brands portfolio. As you mentioned, our company is just at an absolute, just an incredible trajectory right now with all of our brands, and it's an honor to be part of that, and it's an honor to be part of the story that Teva's unfolding right now.
That's awesome. And we follow the good work you guys are doing around, especially around the digital design and development process you guys have, and talking to Mitch Harvey there on the innovation team and 3D team about how Teva now is, I think you said 100% of your product line now for 2022 season is now in 3D.
That's awesome.
3D CADs, which is amazing.
Actually went back to 21. We started that in this past season, which is now at market. So when we were going through the development process for spring 21, we adopted Mitch's team and kind of took that 3D development process as we followed your lead. We turned it to 11. We turned it all the way up, and it led to a really pretty amazing breakthrough in that we were able to take these really high quality renders and get customer feedback from our wonderful partners at REI and DSW, Dick's Sporting Goods, Nordstrom, and all over the world too, to get an optimized product line before we ever built a sample.
That's crazy. I mean, but that's taking advantage, right? There's some companies still talking about that who haven't taken advantage of that just yet, and you guys are leaning directly into it. And I think in particular, that's an amazing sustainability story about cutting down on samples and waste and all that. But also, you're now one of the few companies that we see actually not just designing, making product, importing, and selling it. Now you want it back. So I'm really interested. You guys didn't have enough work on your hands. You're sitting out there just hanging out in California, and then all of a sudden you decide to add more work to your plate. And I'm really interested in the TevaForever project and the new program you guys have, because having sat here and looked at recycling issues for 6 months, more than that, trying to help brands figure out this kind of circularity or even upcycling or downcycling, et cetera. The complexity of that is so hard to even start with getting the product back. So when right off the bat, and I want to bring Jess in on this because I know Jess has been one of the driving forces there, but what is TevaForever? Is it forever? And how does the program work? Maybe you can explain to the listeners what it is, how it works, and why you're doing it.
For sure. So, I mean, you said it. It's a recycling program at the nitty gritty of what it is. But bigger than that, it's really a way for us to connect with our consumers and for them to help us make our Tevas not have such a big impact on the world by kind of really dealing with a solution at end of life. So, I mean, our consumer, they're really educated around sustainability. They know that consumer products are having negative inputs on the world or impacts on the world. and they want to challenge brands to help take care of that. So one of the first things we did when we were kind of vetting this idea, because, circularity, it comes up in a lot of conversations, and we were like, maybe we can actually do this, and how can we do it? So we were like, let's make sure our consumer cares about it first. So we went out to Instagram, we put out a survey, and right away, over 90% of our consumers said that they wanted to recycle our sandals. And then we also wanted to know what else they cared about. So we just kind of left a blank box and let them fill in like all of their concerns when it came to Teva products. And most of them said that they wanted us to deal with our waste, and they wanted us to deal with our shoes at end of life. So that was the number one response to that survey. So we knew that we were like really onto something. So after a bit of a vetting process and trying to figure out how we do this, we ended up partnering with TerraCycle. They're kind of the world's leader in innovative recycling, and they want to find a way to recycle anything and everything. So they have been a great partner for us. And I'll dive into that a little bit more in a minute. But first, like you said, how do you recycle? So for our consumers, you jump on Teva.com. There's a few really easy steps that you take. And then you download a free shipping label. So it was really important for us to make this service free for our consumers. So once you pack up your used Tevas and you put that label on, then they're being shipped directly to TerraCycle's facility. So TerraCycle is handling the taking in, the processing, the cleaning, and then the sorting and the breaking apart of our product to make it into materials where they can actually be recycled. So we were a little lucky that Tevas are made out of singular materials. All of our uppers are made out of rPET and nylon, and those can be recycled together. And then all of our bottoms are made out of EVA and rubber. And because those are singular materials, they can also be recycled together. And because we have 4 points of contact in our sandals, they can easily be taken apart, and then they can be recycled into their own waste streams. So the bottoms, EVA and rubber, those are being broken down, and they're turned into playgrounds and sport courts and tracks and those sorts of industries. And then the uppers, not quite as sexy on this one. They're going into the carpeting industry.
That's all right.
Awesome. Comfort.
Right. Super exciting, but most of us have it in our house, so we'll know where that's going. But either way, it's being kept out of landfills, and that was, our one of our goals of the project.
Yes. Let me ask you this. You talked about how you engage with your consumers, and they're highly educated and they're conscientious. And so part of me thinks to myself, oh my gosh, if I lob something out to my consumer base and they come back with something they want us to do, but they have no idea how difficult it is to do it, how do we accomplish it? But it sounds like you have an awesome partner and a great plan to do that. But then what are the plans to communicate back to your consumer base the KPIs or the outcomes that this program has created? How do you build that narrative and start to communicate it back to your consumers who have an interest in this initiative in particular?
Yeah, you're right, Matt. That is a huge part of it. So we're definitely measuring KPIs about, how many labels are being printed, how many of those labels are actually being used and sent all the way back. Because at the end of the day, if we don't get our consumers to send their shoes back, we don't have anything to recycle. So that was one of the big hurdles, is we needed to make it super easy for the consumer. And then we needed to get them excited about it as well. Like, our consumers are pretty attached to their Tevas. They go all over the world with them and all sorts of adventures. And that's part of the reason they just didn't want to throw them away. And people are holding on to these old shoes that are barely wearable anymore. And we want to get those back. So, that's where we are right now, is we haven't seen all the results yet. There has been a ton of shipping labels printed, but not so many that have made it back to TerraCycle yet. So we have an ambitious, conscientious consumer, and we're now challenging them to, hey, give us those back so we can give them another life.
I think it's interesting that we're at a point where technology is going to help solve some of that, I think, a lot more, right? So if we're selling direct to consumer through our websites, we're capturing all that data. we could probably send them an email every 6 months or 12 months to check in, right? And say, hey, how are they working out? Like create that engagement and say at end of life, remember, you can send them back in the ways that, in 1980, when Matt and I and all of us were shopping in our local shoe stores, the brand probably didn't have that line of insight as who bought it and why they bought it, right? Now we have this kind of tag to see what it is and learn a lot more. So I think it's fascinating how programs like this will be able to be successful based on that data. Like you're able to tag like how many shipping labels got printed and didn't get sent, and then follow up and say, hey, John, what gives? Do you need an Uber to take it to the UPS store, buddy? Because we can help you out. But you touched on something really interesting, and I think this is important for the broader industry to think about around recycling, is working with a partner that is an expert at this, and being able to keep chain of custody and know where the material goes at end of life, right? Like not just that one part got split off here and it went there and you don't know where the other part goes. I think that's super important, but also, and you spoke to this, but your sandal's unique in the fact that, and I wonder about this, did you guys have to redesign any materials or any processes to get it to work to where you could design to the recycling? Or is it just something that, was just fortuitous that you guys had already had those materials and types and construction and it just worked out that way?
Yeah, so we were really lucky. I mean, right off the bat, TerraCycle was like, send us your product. Let's see what we can do with it. And we sent them our biggest franchises, right? Our originals, our hurricanes, our flat forms, our mid forms. We sent them everything we could, and 95% of it came back as already recyclable in its current form. So that was really exciting for us. So we were at a great place, and that was all of our sandals and flips. So this whole thing started as a flips initiative because we know that this is a product that people are replacing in just like 1 to 2 years, where people tend to hold on to sandals for like 5+ years.
That's interesting.
So at first, we just wanted them to be able to recycle our flip-flops, but it turned out that they could recycle our sandals as well, which was a huge opener for us and just made us be able to make the program so much more accessible to all of our consumers, which was really exciting.
Hey, Anders, let me bring you back in the conversation on this front, because knowing the consumer that you do and knowing the brand like you do, are there certain times of year where the expectation is that the consumer will be more apt to recycle? Is it post Labor Day as people are getting back to work and off the trail? Is it after the holidays, after they've gotten a new pair from their family or friends? Are there ways to think about how this program what the cyclical way in which this program will work from a recyclability perspective?
Yeah, it stands to reason. We've been live with TevaForever now for about 3 weeks, so we should schedule a follow-up after Labor Day. And we'll test your hypothesis, Matt.
All right.
But that is absolutely a great point, because we did launch this kind of at the beginning of sandal season, and there's been tremendous interest in it and great, incredible press and incredible conversation with our consumers. And we're expecting for this to really be kind of a end of season alternative to throwing things away, just forgetting about them. And so this is all is one of the things that we're going to learn. I mean, this is so new. And one of the aspects of this project that has been so fascinating is that it hadn't really been done before. And externally in the industry to this level, and there have been some instances of recyclable product, but I don't believe to the same scale, where we're talking about the potential of many millions of pairs in the U.S. alone for Teva alone. It also hadn't been done at Deckers, and I have to just take a moment to credit Jess here, because a program like this requires two things, right? It requires an incredible idea and an opportunity, which she outlined for you, and it requires leadership. And I wish I could have taken you all along the journey, because when this chrysalis kind of formed over the summer last year, the first thing we did was go on a roadshow through all of our partners at Deckers, and we tried to kill the idea. Called our supply chain, called operations, legal, talk to everybody. Tell us why we can't do this. And every time we went through those meetings, the idea got sharper and sharper and sharper, and it became this like moment of enlightenment for everyone. It's like, wow, we actually can do this. And so I have to thank and credit the entire leadership team at Deckers for supporting this, including going all the way up to the C-suite, where David Lafitte, our COO, helped fund this initiative, and so it's a pretty unprecedented story of how something this large a scale and this impactful can happen this fast. And so it's unusual, and I'm really, really proud of it, and I'm proud of us. I'm proud of our company, and Jess, I'm proud of you too. What an incredible program that you've brought to be.
I think it's awesome that you guys just started, right? Like, you don't know where it's going to go, but you're keeping shoes out of landfill. If you keep 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 pair, right? Like, that's where it all starts, and you'll learn and you'll adjust and you'll adapt. And this is the whole, for sustainability. I feel like there's so many people that have like deer in the headlights, where it seems so impossible to make adjustments here and there and think about all the complexities. But sometimes you just got to start and see where it is. And I kudos to you guys for doing it. And I think your point on leadership and culture is so salient, because when we talk to all our members and all the companies out there about sustainability, it does come down to culture. It's not just an adjustment for profitability. It's a change in mindset. And a change, hopefully you got especially the younger folks coming in working in the industry have this huge passion around the environment, and they want to do something meaningful with the product, and solve these challenges. And so building a culture that's sustainable in itself is hugely impactful. And you just heard it right there. I mean, Anders just outlined it perfectly, where the culture at Deckers is built around that. And that's why they're going to be successful at this program and at other things as well. I'm really happy you guys came on here. And I think, Anders, too, around like ESG issues, I think there's a whole conversation happening in C-suites and in companies now that we didn't have happen even a year ago. But investors are more involved about projects like this and more curious about this. And we've talked about consumers getting more involved. How, when you launch this program, how does that change your whole ESG outlook? I mean, your C-suite's got to be super happy with even the kinetic motion towards this, of focusing on this as a brand, and you guys being a leader in the space.
Yeah, thank you for that. We worked really closely with Tom Garcia and Brooke Bashai on this, because Deckers has a great track record here. I happen to be fortunate to have taken part in the formation of the ethical supply chain guidelines back in about 2008, and we have an incredible team that overlooks our obligations to people, and then now the planet. I mean, you all know there is precedent here. I mean, our industry had a backlash in the late 1980s and early 1990s when it came to human rights and manufacturing, and consumers demanded an improvement to the behavior and standards set by corporations. And I believe that we answered those calls quite well in the 1990s. And I think another wave is coming, which is consumers are coming up now, and Jess mentioned it earlier. I mean, an over 90% incidence in our brand's consumer base. So it is a subset of a subset there. But, the necessity for a company to put the planet and the impact of its waste. And this is an interesting distinction here, because Jess said it earlier. Our consumers want to know what we're going to do with our waste, not their waste.
Right.
And this is something that Tom Zaki from TerraCycle talks about a lot. And it takes courage and leadership for an industry to own their externalities, right? There's no penalty for creating waste. There isn't. That's somebody else's problem. This is historically, right? And I believe that there's a very, very steep penalty to be paid in the future for companies that don't begin to act proactively to engage their consumers and engage their supply chain in owning their externalities to a greater degree than we are today. And I am proud to say that Deckers is way ahead in all of this. And quite honestly, we believe at Teva that sustainability is ground zero for innovation in the 21st century.
For sure.
It's what matters. And yes, there's, could we work to design a better foam? Yeah, sure. But there's other sustainability initiatives that will take precedence over that. And we're locking arms with our consumers on this, and really look forward to to joining this mass collaboration that is sustainability, because no brand can do it alone. We need our customers to send in their damn shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Because they play a part in this too, just like us and just like everybody. And I believe the pathway to success is a mass collaboration. And once governments jump in and NGOs jump in, I think you end up with a network of good actors that can bring about incredibly positive outcomes.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, right? It's like send us our waste back so we can do something with it. But it takes a huge collaboration, Anders, and I appreciate how you all are leading on this. The other thing I appreciate is Jasmine Pendergrass's fashion sense. And so we want to bring in Jasmine at this point to lay on us her world famous fashion, footwear, and focus segment, where she has an idea, concept, an article, something that she has her eye on that she unveils to us. And then we comment as if we're an expert, or maybe if we're not, that's okay too. We have no idea what it is. And so with that, Jasmine, I'll let you take the reins and lead us through your segment.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Of course, I'm talking about one of my favorite things to talk about, which is footwear collaborations. I think as it has become more and more popular, digital marketing is, leading the charge. The influencer is the hot commodity. So collaborations is the thing. And I think as time has gone on, thoughtful collaborations are the most successful. And looking at Teva and Polaroid's new collaboration, I think it's just genius. It's like some things that you don't think about. Usually people go with the celebrity, or they'll go with the well-known cartoon brand or something like that. But to partner with something that has just as the great brand identity as Teva, it just makes total sense. So one, I just wanted to get you guys' opinion on collaborations, and especially this one, and just getting your thoughts about it, because I think it's very thoughtful and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, how did that come about?
Yeah, so we look to partner with brands that share our values, and Polaroid was one of those. I feel like people have a deep connection to their Tevas, and most people have some memory of using a Polaroid and having some great memories of their friends or a trip, picture, right? Whatever it was. So it just felt like a really natural opportunity for our consumers to come together, and for us to bring back some memories for them as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can personally attest that I have more than once received a package in the mail to our office, when it wasn't my garage, but it was an office, with somebody's 20-year-old Tevas and a Polaroid picture of them at Machu Picchu. Or so there, awesome. There is a literal salience. But what I loved about this Polaroid thing is I just love brands that feel like they've been around forever, like since the dawn of time. And I think Teva's one of those brands that it's always been, right? Whether the sandal had been invented yet or not, the notion of Teva had always been, and I feel the same way about Polaroid.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like that signature style, like that Polaroid camera has that signature look. Teva has a signature style, and both as soon as you see it. So the collaboration is just like, it takes you back. As soon as you see it, it looks vintage. Even if you're younger and you don't have it, it gives you that feel.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
I do have a question too, and this is in the mind of Pole question. But how many fans at Teva are fans of the hip hop group Outkast? Because you got Shake It Like a Polaroid Picture, and then you got TevaForever. So is it coincidence? I don't know, but ever. So
forever.
We're a huge fan of Outkast, but it's
we're trying to get to Atlanta.
That's awesome.
And Andy, awesome. I just gotta say, you are dating yourself with your references. I'm old enough to remember 2005 myself.
Hey, I own it. I own it, man. Don't worry about me, brother. I own it. Not a problem at all.
Let me ask another question while we have you. How many times in a week do you have to correct someone who says Teva? That drives me crazy.
Never.
They can say it however they want to say it.
Looking like a true diplomat.
I'll say Teva. I'm on my interview. I'm like, I love the brand, and then they told me I love Teva. So
there is a faction at Deckers that's trying to bring Teva back. Like it is a cultural movement to bring Teva back. It's great. People, anytime we can be on the mind of a consumer, regardless of how they pronounce the brand, it doesn't matter.
That's hilarious.
TevaForever just didn't have the same ring as TevaForever.
It's an awesome radio commercial where you have a person going, Teva. No, it's Teva. It's Teva. It's Teva.
Yeah,
the whole time for 30 seconds full. That's it. There's no other pitch or anything. It's just a back and forth. That's pretty funny. That's awesome.
Yeah. When Rosie O'Dolphin posted her video for TevaForever, most of the comments were around how they just learned how to say it. So,
oh man, that's great.
These are the people that are telling you how to run your company. Just kidding.
Oh man. Well, Jess and Anders, thank you so much for joining us today and talking a little bit about Teva in the marketplace, whichever it was. But Teva is obviously a brand that's committed to its customer, and I think that's when Matt and I on the team, we talk about who's emerging stronger. It's people who are connected to their consumer, listening to them and feeding it back in. So kudos to you guys for the TevaForever. I can't iterate how hard it is to recycle shoes. It is so hard. So kudos for you guys for starting. We'll definitely have you back and figure out what the lessons you learned and how, what the pivots were. But I think just starting out is an amazing thing for you guys to be the leaders on this in that space. And we wish you guys the very best and hope that those folks do send their sandals back to you. And hope you guys sell a lot of Polaroid pictures and sandals around the collaboration, because that's cool too. So again, thank you guys for joining us today, folks. Shoe and Show, we cover all things footwear related to the business side of things, the operation, peeling back the curtains and taking a look at your favorite brands, whether you're a consumer or whether you're in the industry. We hope that these conversations spark a little thing in your head that make you think a little bit differently, act a little bit differently, and move our industry down the road together. We do believe, just as we talked today about how collaborations are so cool in the consumer space, we also believe in collaborations among brands. So we always say, if you're not an FDRA member, please join us. Join the collaboration around sustainability, around fighting tariffs, around innovation, around making our industry stronger so we can bring in more dynamic, fun, amazing product to consumers around the world. Again, we are on every single podcast platform possible, so please subscribe. It comes in every Monday morning. We try to keep this fun and fresh, so if you have ideas for guests or topics that you want to hear from, drop us a line and let us know on shoeandshow.com. But again, we always joke about the numbers going up. They are going up, but we do really appreciate everyone listening every single week and giving us great feedback. And we believe, this platform is unique in the fact that we can have really fun conversations and strengthen the industry. And so for us, it's a real pleasure. And we thank you listening. Until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.